Okay, lesson 4.5 is about solving proportions. And in order to understand what a proportion is, we've talked about ratios and rates before. What a proportion is saying that two ratios are equal to each other. So if we have a proportion, two ratios are equal to each other. And what we do to solve that is we will cross multiply and divide. I'm sure you've had that before. So if this is equal, that means that they are a proportion. We talked about a little bit of that in the last section. All right. So here's an example. It says, during the first 2 hours of a winter storm, a total of 3 inches had fallen. Write and solve a proportion to find the amount of time it will take take at this rate for an additional 4 inches of snow to fall. All right. So in order to solve this, we're going to have to first write our rate at which the winter storm is going right now. So far it has had 3 inches in 2 hours. Okay, it's at 3 inches in 2 hours. Remember, when we write our rates, typically time is going to be on the bottom. All right, and we want to know, we want to write and solve a proportion to find the amount of time it will take at this rate for an additional 4 inches. So that means we're going to want 6 total inches in how much time? So we're solving for time. So if this proportion is correct, we're going to try to solve, or this is a proportion, so in order to do this, they're equal to each other. And to solve this, what we do, we use a method called cross multiply and divide. So if I cross multiply, 3 times t is 3t, and 2 times 6 is 12. And in order to solve, then we divide by 3. So t equals 4. So what we're saying, we solve for t was hours. All right, so in 4 hours, if it's going the same rate, we should have 6 inches, or four more additional, so 6 total inches. So we cross multiply and divide to solve proportions. So here we go. It says a quality control manager randomly tests some flashlights as they come off the assembly line. She finds 5 flashlights with defects and 195 flashlights with no defects. How many defective flashlights should she expect to find in a production run of 10,000 flashlights? So first of all, let's write a proportion. So we need to know how many defects there are in the total amount that she tested. And then we want to know, okay, so how many defects, they're asking us how many defects will there be if we test a total of 10,000 flashlights? All right. So what she did is she found how many defects did she find in her just small sample size test? Well, she found 5 with defects. And how many total was she looking through? Well, she found 195 that were good. So she actually looked at 200 total flashlights. And if it continues at this same rate, how many of them are going to have defects when we test 10,000 flashlights? All right. So this could save us some time or save us some guessing instead of trying to test 10,000 flashlights. So we're going to cross multiply and divide. And actually what you can do before you can cross multiply and divide, you can actually reduce this fraction if you want. We know that 5 goes into 200 because 200 ends in a 0 and it goes into there 40 times. So we can reduce this guy before just to save a little math. Okay, so now we can cross multiply. 1 times 10,000 is 10,000. And 40 times d is 40d. And then in order to solve for d, the amount of defects, we divide by 40. All right, and when we divide by 40, we can cross a 0 out. And then how many times does 4 go into 1,000? It should be 250 times. Okay, so d equals 250. So she should expect to find 250 light bulbs with defects. And the last example I have for you. All right, this is actually stuff that I do in the grocery store to figure out whether or not I have a better deal or not. I always figure out what it is per pound or per unit that I'm paying for, and I try to figure out what the best deal is. So here's an example of that. It says Kaylee bought 3 pounds of cashews for $23.85. Write an equation relating the cost of the number of pounds of cashews. How much would Kaylee pay for 2 pounds of cashews at the same rate for 5 pounds? So There's a myth that some of you guys have heard that buying in bulk saves you money. That is true in some cases, but in other cases you're not always. And a lot of times they're not going to follow a specific rate like we have it, and sometimes they do. But I'm going to show you. So a specific rate here. Here she's paying $23.85 for 3 pounds of cashews. So what is she paying per pound? So per means divide. So how much money per pound? So if we divide $23.85 divided by 3, we get $7.95 per pound. Per pound. Okay? So if I were to buy 10 pounds of this, I'd pay $79.50. All right, we just multiply the amount of pounds we have times the money we have. So if we're going to write an equation for that, so how much we're paying, it would be 795 times X or T or V or C for cashews, whatever you want. So our price we're paying is going to equal that. So they want to know how much Kaylee would pay for 2 pounds. So we're just going to plug 2 in right here. 795, whoops, 795 times 2. And 795 times 2 is $15.90. So for 2 pounds of cashews, she's going to pay $15.90. And then for 5 pounds, we're gonna plug 5 in here. So 795 times 5. 795 times 5 is $39.75. So solving for portions and rates, very simple. Set up your ratios and set up your proportions, cross multiply and divide to solve. Hope this helps. We'll see you in class.